I'm John Stahl-Wert, and along with my colleagues around the world, we're committed to serving men and women who are devoting their lives to making the biggest positive impact they can in the world through their leadership. I'm speaking a third time on the subject of how our leadership practice in business affords the opportunity to participate directly in the business of God, if you will. I spoke several sessions back about how we serving leaders are serving our customers, and by serving our customers well, we're producing goods and services and solutions that human beings need, in fact, elevating the well-being of men and women around the world who suffer or who need things in order to grow and flourish, and that our focus on serving our customers is fundamentally to improving the conditions of the world. And then in the previous time that I spoke with you, I talked about the fact that we, serving leaders, are serving standards, values, operating procedures, principles that we will not violate, and that it is vital in an enterprise that wants to sustain itself over time and do good work in the world, that we have standards that we don't violate, and that good leaders are clear about that. They know their standards. They know their values. And even if it costs them money, they hold to them because they understand that at the heart of good business is the keeping of good standards. And I told the story of Ritz Carlton and young Horst Schultz, who brought a transformation to the standard of business worldwide as it pertains to the importance of treating employees right. Because if you don't treat employees right, you don't get the kind of value proposition and excellence that you're looking for. So why do we call this serving leadership? Because we have customers to serve. If we're thinking about serving ourselves, we lose. Why do we call it serving leadership? Because we have standards to serve. We don't just do willy-nilly whatever we feel like that day. We have to uphold the standard. And if we don't, we pay a price for that. There's a third reason that we call this serving leadership, and that is that we have our people to serve. We have people who work with us, who actually are the deliverers of everything that our customer gets. Speed, quality, excellence, safety, timeliness, all of it is delivered by our people. And we call this work serving leadership because we must understand that we don't get that customer well served, and we don't uphold that important standard that we keep if we aren't also serving our people. I just want to tell you a couple of stories. One of the parables that we on earth get to be improved by, one of the parables that we get to study is the parable of the nation of Singapore. Singapore is a parable. And in 1965, Singapore was one of the poorest nations on earth. It's an island nation. They call it a little red dot. To the northwest of Singapore, they had an alliance with Malaysia that was helping to protect them and supply and guard them. For example, Singapore doesn't have drinkable water. And so Malaysia was providing that. And there was an idea that there could be a political alliance that could secure this vulnerable nation of Singapore within the larger, wings of protection of Malaysia. Before that, they were a British protectorate, and so they had the British Empire to lean upon. But the British Empire released them, and in 1965, Malaysia pushed them out, and they were alone in the world. And so you had the threats from Malaysia to the northwest. You had the threats from Indonesia. Go back and read the history from 1965 below them. And you had the proxy wars with the Marxist governments above them in Southeast Asia. And so this little nation was bereft. Now, what did they have going for them? Well, I already told you they didn't have drinkable water, and they didn't have industry, and they didn't have raw materials. You can't drill in Singapore and find oil. There's no bauxite there. There's no gold. There were Chinese people, Malay Muslim people, and Tamil Indian Hindu people sharing what the first Prime Minister of Singapore, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, called a mudflat. Threatened from all sides, bereft of resources, including water to drink. And he sat before that circumstance of history as the Prime Minister and asked some very, very important questions about what to do with a nation that was so small and weak and resourceless, and he made a decision. He said, we're going to invest in our people. Now, building on what I shared the last two sessions, he said, we're going to invest in our people. We're going to grow them. We're going to grow and develop them. Because if we grow and invest in our people, we can hold to a standard that we don't compromise. I talked about that last time, so that we can do good things in customer service to others. He said, that's what we're going to do. And he said, just like every good leader I know, he said, we will not have a future if we don't deliver great value to our customers, by which he meant other nations who might want to do business with Singapore, or other nations who might want to establish headquarters in Singapore, or might want to bring their ships into port in Singapore. He said, we can't establish great value to our customers if we don't do it in a way that keeps our standards. And so they established extraordinary rules against corruption, so that if you do business in Singapore, nobody has their hand in your pocket, which is almost unheard of on earth. Do business anywhere on earth and somebody's got their hand in your pocket. Singapore said, we won't do that. If you want to do good business in Singapore, we will protect you to do good business in Singapore. They have one of the lowest perceptions of corruption of any government on earth. And he said, we don't get there unless we grow our people. And I want to talk about that third one. We are serving leaders because we need to serve our people. We need to grow our people. Show me a business, show me a leader who is 5 years in, 10 years in, 20 years in, 50 years in, flourishing, building and sustaining and expanding reputation in their market. And I will show you a leader who learned the lesson that their people need to be served, that they're not tools or expendable assets, that their people need to be served. Some years ago, I will take this back maybe to 2012, 2013, and I'm going to have to be super vague. I just will. I was talking to a person of faith who was a person of standards. You know, he had convictions about things, right and wrong and good and bad, who was at the helm of a company he owned that was doing $20, $25 million of work in a certain industry. And this man believed in serving leadership, in principle. He said, I love it. He said, I love it. You know, the idea that we're not here to be served, we're here to serve. He said, I'm all over that. I want that. And I was talking to him about problems that he was suffering in his company: worker turnover, mistakes, customers disappointed because what showed up at the end of the day wasn't the product that was promised, leaders who were being mean and brutal, people at the line level who were getting away with not murder, exactly, but the equivalent of murder, being bullies or being arrogant or being full of themselves and squashing morale and taking credit that wasn't theirs. There was a cultural dynamic in this man's company that was not good for people. And what I was saying to him is, let's invest in how your leaders understand their job, what kind of practices they bring to their daily work, how we get your standards, your values, your mission, your vision down into the hearts of frontline people, and how we create a culture where everybody is on the same page, and that kind of bullying and morale-killing behavior goes away because it doesn't have any room, and so that your people can grow. Let's work on that, because what's happening to your company out in the marketplace is a product of what's happening inside your company at the people space. And so let's invest in leadership and people. Leadership and people in your culture. And he said to me, boy, I'd like to, John. I believe in this. I want to do it. But he said, I can't do it this year. I can't do it this year because this year I have to focus on profitability. You know, we're upside down, and I got to put all my resources into profitability. And when I can, I'm going to put resources into people. He said, I'm there, but just not this year. I had that conversation with him 3 years in a row. And what I said to this man is your profit experience, your market experience, your delivery of value and customer satisfaction experience, the growth of your company in its sector, your market share, is a direct result. It is an immediate result of your people experience. And what I was working with, I've worked with hundreds of times, is I was working with someone who believed that business is about, just getting stuff done. And then we also want to do good things if we can. Not understanding that the growth of people and the growth of leadership is the driver of the growth of company. I've encountered this many times. Now, I have said repeatedly, and I will say till the day I die, that the vast majority of businesses understand this. But there is also misunderstanding about this. I need to drive results. I hope to grow and develop leaders and care for my people. And I hope I have time to do both. It isn't a both. The production of growth, the production of increase is a byproduct of the growth of leaders and people. And so for the founder of Singapore, the first prime minister, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, he understood it. He said, I'm going to invest in people. I'm going to grow our people. I'm going to give them opportunity for growth. There's a monthly budget that the government in Singapore has. Every citizen of Singapore has a significant sum of money from the government that they can tap every year for professional development, for skill improvement. And they've done this from the beginning because he knew that if they're going to become world-class as a nation, that it would be driven by their people. We are serving leaders because we serve our people. Serving our people is done through the serving of our standards. And our people upholding the standards is what makes it possible for us to sustain serving our customers. And serving our customers is what gives us the opportunity to grow and reach more people. This is how the business enterprise works. And it's really important for us to understand the fundamentalness of serving our people. I've said again and again, you've heard me say it again and again, that one of the fundamental questions we leaders must answer is, how important are our people? We've got to answer that question. Because if we aren't clear at how vital our people are, then we don't go about the task of doing those fundamental things that drive the outcomes that are important. And so over the years, without what we think of as natural resources, Singapore grew. Today they are, as measured in the category of gross domestic product per capita, and there's a secondary measure there called purchasing power parity. You have to ask, okay, what does that currency turn into in terms of actual purchasing power by the people who live there? GDP per capita, PPP, purchasing power parity. Singapore is number one out of 197 nations on Earth from 1965 to 2024. They went from middle of the bottom. They were tied with Kenya to number one on Earth. We are in other nations that are at the bottom of that list. And at the bottom of that list is not a dedication to serving customers well. At the bottom of that list is not the keeping of standards. I'm in leadership because I have a standard to keep. No, I'm in leadership because I need to get something for myself. And at the bottom of that list is not an understanding that the role of leadership is to elevate others. And then we could say, well, those nations have no hope. They have utter hope if they get a good leader. Everything is driven by leadership. They have utter hope. Did Singapore have no hope? I mean, think about a nation with no hope. Kicked out of Malaysia, abandoned by Great Britain, threatened on all sides by nations that had agendas that were hostile to them. Did they have any hope? Did they have a prayer? Well, no, they didn't. But they had a leader who understood what needed to be done, and he hewed to the line of serving people. He was a serving leader, serving standards. You can't get away in Singapore with corruption. They pay you well, they treat you well, but the penalties for corruption are severe. Every other society on earth that I work in, including the United States, where it's a little more hidden, operates with deep corruption. Power means you have access to leverage, which you lever for yourself. And that doesn't build sustainability over time. One of my friends in Pittsburgh named Kent McElhatton, like people I often mention on these podcasts, Kent may listen to this. He doesn't know I'm talking about it. Kent built Industrial Scientific here in Pittsburgh in 1985, and he was talking to his wife Martha back then, and Kent said, I know the purpose of business. He had been to business school and he had been taught. He said, I know the purpose of business is to make money. He said, I know that, but he said, I'm not that interested in it. He said, I'm interested in people. He said, I want to bet on people. I want to hire good people. I want to treat good people well, and I want to arm them with good tools and set them free, give them the parameters of good, clear standards of why we do our work and how we serve our customers well and how we treat one another. That's what I want to do. He said, I believe in the growth of people. And I often think of Kent McElhatton and Lee Kuan Yew together because they had the same instinct about the power of serving people. And here's a quote you've heard me quote before. He said to me a decade ago, more than a decade ago, he said, John, this technology company, Industrial Scientific, manufactures gas detection safety implements that you wear in your belts or otherwise to save you from leaks in industrial settings, a technology company. He said, John, I don't worry about our competitors stealing our technology. They do. This company in Abu Dhabi, in France, in China, he said they do. But what they cannot steal from us is the honor and the dignity and the sense of worthiness. That's a direct quote. The sense of worthiness our people bring to work every day. That's a technology guy talking. He said, if, quote continues here, if I had to choose between a technology competitive advantage and a people competitive advantage that'd be easy, I'd pick people any day. Any day. We're serving leaders because we serve people. Lee Kuan Yew did it. Lifted his nation to the top of the world. It's a beautiful nation. Kent McElhatton did it. Lifted his company to the leading company in the industry worldwide. And thousands and hundred thousands and millions of other companies do it too. We're here to treat people well. We're not here for ourselves. We're here to serve our people. We're here to see them grow. We're here to elevate them. And by the way, when you step back and ask the question, what is part of the business of God? There's a lot we don't know. The vast majority of what is true we have not a clue about, but we have some clue. And one of the things we know is that part of the enterprise of God, part of the business proposition of God is He is a grower of people. His intent in our lives is that we grow up, so that we can show up, so that we can love, so that we can serve, so that we can make an impact, so that we can do things around us that create safety and dignity and meaning and worth and love, skill, creativity, imagination in others. Part of God's manufacturing enterprise is the growth of human beings. And when we, in our business, be it laundromat or hospital, it doesn't matter. When we are growing people, when we are investing in the growth and the elevation of human beings, we are in the enterprise of God, co-laborers, participants with. And I want to encourage you with that as you go about your work today, and as you lean into the task. Keep your eyes on your people. Think about your people. Serve your people. Ask good questions that help you understand what helps them do better work, what helps them have a deeper sense of meaning and trust and value working with you. Serve your people. It's part of our fundamental assignment. And so I wish you all encouragement as you go about the task of driving business in a way that elevates human beings.
For more information about the Center for Serving Leadership, visit our website at centerforservingleadership.com.